Jonas Hale rode his old horse over the final rocky slope, just as the evening sun was about to dip behind the mountains. 6 weeks ago, he had left this place to go into town and settle a land dispute, leaving behind a cold, crumbling ranch with nothing but a leaky porch and a dry well. He had thought that when he returned, only the wind and the dust would greet him, just like always. But today was different. From a distance, Jonas saw smoke rising in white columns from the chimney. On the land where only wild, dry grass once grew, there were now neat rows of vegetables. The horse stable, long since rotted away, now held 4 unfamiliar horses grazing quietly. The air carried something strange, the smell of baked goods, burning pine wood, the scent of a home that was no longer empty. Jonas frowned. He was certain he had locked the door before leaving. This ranch was not along any trade route, and no one even knew it existed. No one should be here. He tied his horse to a post and stepped onto the porch. The wooden planks creaked beneath his boots. A gust of wind swept through the valley, hollow and cold, like a warning. Jonas reached for the doorknob and froze. The last light of day brushed the porch roof, and that was when he saw them. 4 women hung from the rafters, ropes tight around their necks, their feet dangling just inches above the ground. Their dresses fluttered in the breeze, hair tangled and wild, eyes half open, breath shallow and ragged. Jonas stood frozen. In that moment, the world held its breath. Then he rushed toward them, with only one thought in his mind. They are still alive. I have to save them, right now. Jonas did not have a second to think. The hunting knife he always carried at his hip was out of its sheath before his mind could catch up with his body. He lunged toward the nearest one, a young blonde girl. Her hair a tangled mess, eyes bulging from lack of oxygen, head thrown back, hands clawing desperately at the air. Jonas slashed the rope. She collapsed onto the wooden floor, folding in on herself, coughing violently, each sound raw and scraping from the deepest part of her throat. Jonas barely had time to turn to the second woman. She was small-framed, her cheeks bruised, long brown hair matted with sweat. She was so weak that she could only tremble. Her eyes nearly glazed over. Jonas reached up to support her neck before cutting the rope, making sure she would not hit the ground. She crumpled against his chest, her breathing nothing more than faint, thread-thin rasps. The third woman was older, her features marked with age, strands of silver running through her brown hair. Her face had turned blue, her pulse nearly gone. Jonas cut her down and laid her gently on her side, checking for breath, faint, but still there. The last woman, the tallest, built strong, had purple lips, but her eyes still held awareness. She was trying to use her feet to find something to push against, to relieve the pressure on her neck, but she was losing strength. When Jonas cut the rope, she instantly pulled away, stumbling backward until her back hit the porch post. Her hands shook, but she raised them in a defensive stance. Her voice cracked and broken. "Stay back. Do not come near me." Jonas raised both hands, breathing heavily. "Take it easy. I just saved your lives." She kept panting, eyes wide and guarded. The older woman on the ground whispered, her voice like wind about to fade. "He is not the one who hung us." Jonas nodded. "I know. But who did this?" The 4 women looked at each other, panic in their eyes, fear etched deep, but also as if they shared a burden too heavy to speak. The blonde girl, Clara, tried to speak, but her throat burned. Her voice came out in a raspy whisper. "They came before sunrise, said nothing, tied us up, hung us." Jonas tightened his grip on the knife, his heart pounding. Why? What did they want? The strong one, Rose, squinted through the pain. "We do not know," they said. "We were hiding something. Something of theirs. But we had nothing. They thought we were protecting someone. Or something," Maybelle added, her voice trembling. Jonas looked around. No signs of bank robbers. This was not the work of drunken wanderers. Hanging people alive was not just about sending a message, it was the tactic of those who wanted to instill fear deep into the marrow. On the porch post, the rope still swayed gently, and the wind blew in, carrying red dust into the broken breaths of the 4 women. Jonas took a deep breath. Get inside. They could come back at any moment. Rose lifted her head, eyes dark with something she had not yet said. She stepped closer to Jonas, voice low. You do not understand. If they come back, no one survives. Jonas turned toward the darkening valley. He knew she was right, and he knew one more thing. From this moment on, he could not walk away. Jonas helped the 4 women into the ranch house. The place, once cold and lifeless, now held the presence of people, but it was not warmth they brought. It was the weight of silent panic, like 4 small birds that had just slipped the blade of a predator. He lit a fire in the hearth. The flames flickered across 4 pale faces, huddled close together, as if ready to flee if Jonas made even one wrong move. The older woman, the one who had barely escaped death, tried to sit up, though the dark purple marks from the rope were still fresh around her neck. Jonas handed her a cup of water. She raised it with trembling hands. I am Grace Shaw, she said slowly. We are not thieves. Not troublemakers. We just needed a place to survive the winter. Clara, the youngest, the blonde, hugged her knees, her voice tight with emotion. We thought this was an abandoned ranch. Everyone said no one had lived here in years. Jonas frowned. I bought it 2 months ago. All 4 women looked briefly stunned. The strongest of them, Rose, stared at Jonas for a long moment, as if trying to decide whether he could be trusted. Her dark brown hair framed eyes like sharpened obsidian, deep and sharp as a blade. We arrived 3 days ago, Rose said. The well was dry, the roof leaking, the stove cold, but it was still better than dying on the side of the road. Maybelle, the small, gentle one, clutched a torn piece of cloth in her hands. We tried fixing the place, planting vegetables. We only wanted peace. Jonas stayed silent. He did not know if they were telling the truth, but he could see real fear in the way they breathed. He asked, So who hung you? And why? The room fell quiet. The fire crackled softly in the hearth. Outside, wind whistled through the cracks in the door, carrying with it a faint howl from the open fields. Grace answered, her voice low but steady. We do not know their names. There were 6 of them. They came before dawn. No questions, no talking. They just grabbed us and hung us. Clara's voice trembled. We did not understand what they wanted. They said we were hiding something. Jonas's brow furrowed. What thing? Rose bit her lip, eyes filled with helplessness. If we knew, we would not have ended up hanging there, still alive. Maybelle looked up, eyes full of sadness and fear. When we fled the town, we brought nothing but the clothes on our backs. But one of the 6 men said, Our thing is here. You hid it in the house, didn't you? Jonas stood up and looked out the window. Night had fallen fast. The wind was shifting, signaling the cold was coming. He turned back to the 4 women, still gathered close to the fire. Maybe they were mistaken, Jonas said. Or maybe someone else hid something in this ranch long before I bought it. Rose spoke softly, afraid of what he might say next. Do you think they will come back? Jonas gripped the handle of his knife. They will, for sure. The 4 women lowered their heads. Fear pressed down on the room like a thick fog. Then Jonas added, his voice steady as stone. But when they do come back, they will have to face me. With the 4 women settled by the fire, Jonas pulled his leather coat back on and stepped out onto the porch. He needed to know exactly who had strung 4 innocent people up in his rafters and why they believed what they were looking for was here. The western night wind was cold and sharp as a blade, sweeping across the ground, kicking up red dust in long, trailing ribbons. Jonas crouched low, examining every mark around the house. Within minutes, he realized the first thing. There were 6 riders, and all of them were professionals. The hoof prints were deep and evenly spaced, not the kind made by drunken drifters or clumsy bandits. Next to the horse stable were drag marks, as if someone had been pulled or something heavy had been hauled along. Near the back wall were distinct boot impressions, sharp-edged, heavy soles, the kind issued to old Border Patrol units. Jonas touched the hatch door to the root cellar. It had been chopped with a clean axe blade, not smashed in blindly. A chill crept up his spine. These men were not amateurs. He opened the hatch and climbed down. Cold, damp air rose from the dirt floor. A torch fixed to the wall had burned low, casting flickering yellow light. On the ground was a deep boot print, pressed hard into the mud. Whoever made it was heavy and in a hurry. Nearby were marks where someone had been scraping or digging. Everything Jonas had stored just days ago was scattered but untouched. They were not after food, gear, or money. They were searching for one thing. Jonas knelt, studying the floor near the corner wall. There, the dust had been swept aside, revealing a strange symbol carved carefully into the dirt with a knife. A triangle, crossed cleanly through the center by a single line. Not religious, not a miner's mark, not native. Jonas clenched his jaw. He knew this symbol. Only one group used it. The Blood Riders. Mercenaries for hire, known for hunting people ruthless, silent, and so feared that every town knew their name, though no one had ever seen their faces. And they only answered to one man, someone Jonas had once served with in the same unit. Silas Cairn. A name Jonas believed had died 3 years ago. His heart pounded. If Silas was alive, and he had come to this ranch, then this was far bigger than 4 women stumbling into the wrong place. Rose appeared in the cellar doorway, clutching her shawl, her voice shaky. "What did you find?" Jonas looked up. The firelight reflected in his eyes. "It was not you. You did not bring this here." "Then, who did?" Rose's fingers tightened around the cloth, her lips turning pale. Jonas answered, his voice low, heavy as stone. "The last owner of this ranch. Someone hid something here that Silas Cairn desperately wants back." Fear spread across Rose's face. Jonas climbed out of the cellar, closed the hatch, and stared into the endless darkness of the valley. "And he will come back for it. That much is certain. Thank you for being here." If this story brought back memories of old days, those dusty afternoons, the sound of hooves echoing in your chest, consider subscribing to my channel. So each day we can sit together once more, and I will tell you another story from the wild, wild west. Jonas stepped back into the cellar, this time more slowly, as if each footfall was turning a page in the darkest chapters of a past he thought he had buried. The torch had burned down to smoke, but moonlight filtering through the hatch slit was enough to reveal the truth that had been hidden for so long. In the far left corner of the cellar, beneath a thin layer of dust, Jonas found a small square metal box, heavy, but empty. He lifted it, turned it over in his hands, and heard the hollow echo bounce softly through the cellar. It had not been opened recently. The rusted edges of the latch showed it had been unlocked many years ago, likely back when the previous owner of the ranch was still alive. Faintly etched on the lid were the words, "Property of SK." Jonas's heart sank. There was only one man in this entire region who used those initials on his belongings. Silas Cairn. If this box once belonged to him, then what was he looking for? Illegal documents? A map? Gold? Or evidence? Jonas did not believe Silas cared about money. He craved power. Whatever had been in this box, it was something he could never allow anyone else to have. Jonas crouched near the spot where the box had been found. Beneath the disturbed earth, there was something else, a torn scrap of paper, ripped in haste, the handwriting crude but legible. "Must not fall into the hands of Silas Cairn." The words felt like a voice from the grave, thickening the air around him. Jonas stood up straight, gripping the note so tightly his fingers turned white. The ranch's previous owner had not fled because of debts or disease. He ran because of Silas. And in the end, it was likely that he died because of whatever had once been hidden inside that box. "Jonas?" Maybelle's voice came from the wooden stairs. He turned. The 4 women stood at the cellar's entrance, their faces tired, but their eyes searched his for answers, something to help them understand the storm that was now swirling around them. Jonas handed the note to Grace. She read it, her face going pale. "Silas Cairn," Grace whispered. "They say he used to serve in the border patrol, but was discharged for killing prisoners without cause." Clara hugged her shoulders tight. "Then, what he wants has nothing to do with us." Jonas nodded. "He thinks you took what was in the box, but it has been gone for a long time." Rose narrowed her eyes, her voice low and sharp. "Then he will come back and tear this ranch apart until he finds it." Jonas looked at all 4 of them, his voice firm as hardened pine. "Not just come back. He will bring enough men to kill anyone who gets in his way." The wind howled outside, and the wooden door groaned, a distant, mournful creak. Clara swallowed hard and asked the one question that hung heavy in everyone's mind. "Do we have a chance to survive?" Jonas looked up, his eyes hard with the cold focus of a man who had survived battlefields. "If we start preparing now, we do. But Silas Cairn will not stop, and he will be back very soon." The wind rose from the west, at first carrying only thin trails of dust, but then thickening into red streaks that swept through the valley like a bloody mist. Jonas stood on the porch, eyes narrowed as he felt the sudden shift in the air a clear sign. Someone was coming. Just minutes later, the sound of hooves echoed from afar. At first, one horse, then two, then six. 6 pounding, deliberate hoofbeats, drawing closer with purpose. Jonas took a deep breath and stepped back inside the house. They are here. Grace stood up at once, her neck still bruised and swollen. What do we do? Jonas's voice held the weight of iron. Get to the cellar, now. Clara's eyes widened in panic. What about you? I stay outside. Maybelle trembled. 1 man against 6. Jonas flipped the Winchester rifle into his hands, checked the chamber, then looked at them with eyes hard as mountain stone. I am not fighting. I am buying time. The 4 women exchanged glances, then one by one descended into the cellar. Rose was the last to go, pausing halfway down the stairs, her gaze sharp and unblinking. Jonas, if they catch you, he answered without hesitation. I have survived worse than them. Just do what I said. Rose bit her lip, gave a small nod, then pulled the cellar door shut. The wind howled through the yard, and the creaking of the wooden porch sounded like a distant cry across the prairie. Jonas stepped back onto the porch just as the first dark shapes emerged on the trail. 6 riders, cloaked in long dusters, their faces half covered with dark scarves. At the center was him, Silas Kern. Jonas recognized him instantly, even from afar. The gleaming black leather coat, the worn gun belt, and that scarred flame-spotted horse, the same one Jonas had seen on the battlefield 3 years ago. Silas pulled the reins, stopping just 10 meters from Jonas. He raised his head and tugged down the scarf, revealing eyes the color of winter steel, cold, gray, unblinking. Jonas Hale, he said, his voice scraping like metal over stone. Never thought I'd see your face again. Jonas stood his ground, Winchester lowered at his side but not yet raised. I thought you were dead, Silas. Silas smirked. You should have wished that were true. His men spread out, forming a crescent around the porch, each with a hand resting on the grip of their gun. Silas reached up and toyed with the noose still hanging from the porch beam, studying the bruised marks left in the rope like he was admiring a piece of his own art. Yesterday, I thought those filthy little women had my property. Jonas's tone was ice. They are not involved. Oh, Jonas, Silas chuckled, a quiet, bone-chilling sound. Everything in that house is involved with me. He gestured to one of his men. The man dismounted and moved toward the house. Jonas swung the Winchester into position, blocking the doorway. He stepped forward onto the porch, his eyes dark and fixed. No one crosses this threshold. The man stopped in his tracks. Silas stared at Jonas for a long time, then spoke, slow and heavy, each word pressed into the dirt like a boot print. I want what was in the metal box. Jonas did not blink. It is empty. Silas's smile thinned like a blade. Then you are the last man to have seen it. The wind howled louder. The world seemed to hold its breath. 6 guns waited for a signal. Jonas knew. This fight would happen, and he had to survive long enough to protect the 4 women hiding below. Silas let the silence stretch, as if he was trying to sniff fear off Jonas. But Jonas's face remained unmoved, carved from stone. Only one thing shifted. His eyes flicked. Just for a second, down to the porch floor, where he had earlier spread a thin layer of horse oil, giving the wood a slick, waxy sheen. Jonas spoke calmly. Silas, if you want to get inside, step up here yourself. Silas looked at the porch, then at Jonas. He was clearly suspicious, but the pride of a man used to giving orders would not allow him to back down from someone standing alone. He jumped off his horse and walked straight toward the steps. One of his men started to follow, but Silas waved him off. No need. I'll handle this myself. Jonas stepped back, as if giving him room. Silas set foot on the porch and slipped. He cursed, trying to regain his balance, but the oil sent him skidding. His body tilted hard to the left just as Jonas swung open the wooden door. From the darkness inside came Rose's sharp cry. Now, Grace, Rose, and Maybelle, though still weak from the hanging, sprang from behind the porch posts, ropes in hand. Jonas lunged before Silas could draw his gun. seizing his arm, twisting it back, and slamming him down onto the wooden floor. Clara threw open the cellar hatch and handed Jonas a thick leather strap they had found earlier. In just 3 chaotic seconds, the 5 of them moved as one. Rose wrapped the strap around Silas's wrists. Maybelle held down his legs. Clara looped the rope up over the beam. Grace, with all the strength she had left, tied the knot tight. Jonas forced Silas face down, pinning his shoulders to the boards. Silas screamed in rage, his voice cracking. "You cheap who?" Jonas drove a fist into his jaw. Silas went silent. Jonas spoke low, each word like stone. "That's enough." His men had no time to react. It had all happened too fast. One drew his gun. Jonas swung the Winchester over Silas's back, aiming squarely through the porch opening. "Take one more step, and I will break your leg first." The 3 looked at each other, then turned tail and bolted, spurring their horses down the slope without daring to glance back. The sound of hooves faded quickly into the valley. Only the heavy breaths of 5 people remained on the porch, 4 women still bruised from the ropes, and Jonas, pressing down the man who had once been his battlefield nightmare. Grace placed a hand on Jonas's shoulder. We did it." Jonas tied another loop around Silas, locking it tight like hammering steel into stone. "This is not to kill him," he said. "It's to bring him before a federal court. He will talk, and he will never hurt anyone again." Clara looked down at Silas, now motionless, her voice trembling. You're really going to hand him over to the law?" Jonas nodded, his eyes sharp. "There's no justice like the kind where people can look him in the eye while he's held accountable." Rose whispered, "For the first time in a long time, I feel like we actually have a future." Jonas replied, "Not just a future. From now on, you are truly free." Night fell over the ranch like a heavy black blanket. The wind slipped through the cracks in the doors, carrying the scent of dust and cold mist. But inside the small house, the fire crackled in the hearth, casting its warm glow over 5 exhausted but living faces. Silas Kern was tied to the porch post outside, unconscious, no longer a threat. Jonas had used the same rope that had once hung the 4 women to bind him, a reversal of fate, a justice served. Grace sat with a cup of hot tea that Jonas had made for her. Clara was curled up on the couch under a wool blanket. Maybelle carefully stitched the tear in Rose's shirt, her hands still shaking, but steady with purpose. Rose sat near the door, glancing outside every so often, as if her instincts still refused to let her relax. After a long moment, Jonas placed the empty metal box on the table. All 4 women turned to look at it. Grace asked softly, "Jonas, what is it? What was he looking for?" Jonas gently flipped the lid open. Inside, nothing but a layer of old dust and a small scrap of paper clinging to the edge. He held it close to the firelight to read. On that scrap was a faded stamp, one belonging to the Federal Court of Wyoming. Clara held her breath. It was documents? Jonas nodded. Not gold, not a treasure map. He posed, eyes distant. Evidence of a crime. Maybelle gripped her chest. "Silas's screams?" "Yes," Jonas said, his voice as solid as the mountain. "Papers proving he was corrupt, took bribes, covered up crimes, and ordered illegal executions of prisoners. All of it was once inside that box." Rose straightened up. "Then the ranch's previous owner. He was a witness," Jonas continued. "He got a hold of the documents and hid them here. Maybe he meant to turn them over to the federal court. But Silas found out, and the man had to run." Clara swallowed hard, her voice trembling. Did Silas kill him?" Jonas did not answer. "He did not have to." All 4 of them understood. Grace looked down at her hands, the rope marks still deep in her skin. "We nearly died. For something that was never ours." Jonas placed a hand on the table, his voice firm. "No, you nearly died because one evil man could not let the truth be known. But tonight," he looked out to the porch, where Silas lay bound beneath the cold moonlight. "Everything changes." The room fell silent. But it was no longer the silence of fear. It was relief after a horror that had nearly stolen their lives. Grace spoke first, her voice soft but steady. "We'll leave at sunrise, Jonas. We do not want to be a burden." Jonas glanced around the house. The home that these 4 women had cleaned, planted vegetables in, repaired with their own hands. The home that, just hours ago, had nearly become a grave. He shook his head. No, you are not going anywhere. All four of them looked up. Jonas spoke slowly, as if each word was a vow. You need a home. This ranch needs people, and I do not want this place to be cold and empty again. By the fire, Clara let out a soft sob. Maybelle reached out and held her. Rose turned her head to hide the tear rolling down her cheek. Grace closed her eyes, exhaling a breath she had been holding for years. Jonas added, his voice warm and steady. Starting tonight, this is your home. No one will ever hang you again. No one. And so beneath the long night and the crackling fire, the broken ranch became a sanctuary. 5 strangers became a new kind of family. A beginning no one could have predicted. My friend. In a land where violence often overrules the law, the kindness of one person may be the only thing that pulls another back from the edge of despair. Jonas did not save these 4 women for glory or duty. He saved them because his heart knew that life, no matter how fragile, deserves to be protected. And in that moment in the cold night, beside the flickering fire, kindness became a guiding light, turning broken people into a family and giving them a place to begin again. I am so grateful you were here with me. I just hope that wherever you are safe and happy. I love you, my dear audience of Wild West storytelling. Let me know what you thought of this story. Leave a comment down below. Type the number 1 if you enjoyed this story. And do not forget to subscribe so you can catch the next thrilling tale from the Wild West.